Daniel and Sarah sat in the dimly lit kitchen, the only sounds the soft ticking of the clock and the hum of the refrigerator. Sarah took a tentative bite of her sandwich, her first meal since being rescued from the abandoned building where she'd been held captive for days. Her hands trembled, and her eyes darted around the room, as if expecting danger to leap out from the shadows. Daniel watched her closely, concern etched across his face. "Sarah," he began gently, "we need to contact the police. They need to know what happened to you." She hesitated, her eyes widening with fear. "We can't," she whispered, her voice barely audible. She set her sandwich down, her appetite gone. "They were the ones who locked me in that room. I saw them do something very bad." Baxter, Daniel's loyal golden retriever, seemed to sense her distress. He patted over and nudged her leg with his wet nose, then rested his head in her lap. Sarah's eyes softened as she stroked his fur, finding a small measure of comfort in his presence. Daniel's expression hardened. "Corrupt cops?" he asked, more to himself than to her. His mind raced, trying to piece together the implications. "That makes things complicated, but I have a friend in the FBI. If there's anyone who can help us with this, it's him." Sarah looked at him, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "Do you think they can help? Really?" Daniel nodded. "If we have evidence, my friend, Agent Tom Harper, will make sure it gets handled the right way. We just need to be careful. These guys will do anything to cover their tracks." They wasted no time. Daniel quickly made the call to Agent Harper, explaining the situation in as much detail as he could without revealing too much over the phone. Harper agreed to meet them at a safe house, promising he'd bring a small team he trusted. The next few days were a whirlwind of activity. Harper listened intently as Sarah recounted her story. She had been in the wrong place at the wrong time, stumbling upon a group of police officers making a deal with known criminals. She saw them exchange packages, drugs, money, and worse. She heard them discuss taking out a witness who had seen too much. When they noticed her, they grabbed her and locked her away in that abandoned building. She had managed to hear enough to know they were planning to kill her once the heat died down. Harper's face grew dark with anger as she spoke. "These aren't just bad cops," he said grimly. "This sounds like an entire corrupt ring. We're going to need hard evidence to bring them down, and that means going after them ourselves carefully." The plan began simply: gather evidence without tipping anyone off. They started with a few minor players who were easier to surveil. Daniel, Harper, and a small, trusted team began tailing some of the officers Sarah had identified, using unmarked cars and high-tech listening devices. Baxter, now a key part of their little operation, often stayed by Sarah's side, providing her comfort during stakeouts and stressful moments. One evening, they caught a break. Daniel and Harper, disguised as maintenance workers, managed to plant a listening device in a bar frequently visited by the corrupt officers. That very night, they picked up a conversation confirming Sarah's story and something more sinister: a plan to eliminate someone referred to as the witness. They knew they had to act fast, but it wasn't going to be that simple. The officers were smart, and they had eyes everywhere. They soon realized that something was off. As the pressure mounted, Sarah, Daniel, and Harper found themselves being hunted as much as they were the hunters. The next few days were a chaotic blur. The corrupt cops, sensing the noose tightening, became more desperate and unpredictable. One night, Daniel's car was rammed off the road by an unmarked vehicle. He barely managed to escape unscathed, but the message was clear: back off or face the consequences.